What's up guys, welcome back to another video, and if you're watching this video on the day it actually goes live, it's my birthday, so happy birthday to me. But I figured I would do something a little bit different today. I didn't want to do anything too crazy because I've been killing myself with reviews lately just to crank stuff out, and I figured I'd take a minute to just sort of look back at some figures that and some toys that maybe I don't ever really talk about that I kind of consider my favorites. Not necessarily like my top 10 all-time toys that I own, but things that mean something to me and things that you're likely never going to see on this channel otherwise because they're old or they're objectively not good figures. Some of these things I've talked about. One of them you see every time you watch a video if you watch the intro. And I'll start with that thing because that might as well knock the big one out first, and that is this big guy right here. So this is in the intro every time, you know, the black screens are going with the various toys that pop through. This is definitely one of the most rare and expensive toys that I own. Certainly the most expensive thing you're going to see on this video. This is the Bandai and X Plus Premium Vinyl Daijujin, or the original Power Rangers Megazord. So this thing came out a couple years back and it was about 250 bucks roughly, and then I had to get it shipped here from Japan. And you can see how big it is. It's enormous. It's basically the best physical representation of the Megazord that I know of. It is as close to screen accurate to the suit as possible. I just absolutely love this thing. I was very, very hesitant to actually buy it. And then when I did buy it, I realized just how rare it was going to be, because this thing was a pre-order only item. So they made as many as were pre-ordered, and then this thing has just skyrocketed in value ever since. So on the off chance I need a buck, this thing's going to be the one that I turn to first probably. But this thing is just fantastic. I mean, it's got all the requisite details. It's just a vinyl statue basically. It only really moves its arms. It has a stand for the shield so it doesn't weigh itself down. It doesn't really do much of anything except look cool. So we've got that big guy, and it's definitely a big fella. One thing that I talked about recently is this fella right here. So this is my childhood Stinkor. He has seen better days. He doesn't have his armor. I don't have his shield, and he is a mess. He still smells, but faintly. He doesn't really stink up the room anymore. But this is the one I've had since I was a kid. You know, I don't know exactly when I got him. I'm sure I was maybe 3 or 4 or something like that. Maybe a little bit younger, because Masters was still not necessarily new by the time I came around. But this is my favorite Masters of the Universe figure. It's not the one that I actually display. The vintage Stinkor that I display is the one that I got not too long ago, and is complete and is about as immaculate as I'm going to afford in terms of a vintage figure, because I don't go too crazy on vintage Masters. But this is my my longtime favorite Stinkor. He still works, he still spins, and then he's got some floppiness going on with the legs. So he's never standing again, most likely. Maybe a Thundercats figure that you wouldn't expect me to have a lot of, you know, emotion towards. But this figure, for some reason, really does it for me on a lot of levels. And that is, surprisingly, I'm sure, the Bandai Tigra. So this is the 8-inch Classics Tigra that they made. Tigra is my favorite Thundercat. Always has been. And this figure, honestly, objectively speaking, outside of the glossiness on it, isn't bad. It's pretty solid. I just really, really liked it. I think all of my hopes for a Thundercats revival were put into this figure when he came out, so I have a lot of attachment towards it, because if this is what they all looked like, then I was going to be pretty happy. He's certainly not perfect by any means. I would much rather have a four horseman version than this guy, but it is really cool. It has a prominent place in my Thundercats case. And yeah, it's Tigra. I mean, I can't not have it. It's the only big figure that we've ever gotten of the guy, so I had to pick him up. And I've got one carded as well, just because I'm that guy. We've got another thing that might be kind of weird, kind of odd, and I've already knocked the stand off of him. So, I don't know, back in the 90s, these were a line of Speed Racer figures from Resource, and you know, they're not a thing anymore, they're gone. These figures are objectively pretty bad. Like, they don't really do anything. They're 5 points of articulation, head swivel, arm swivel, and then the legs swivel. And then they've got stands that all say Speed Racer with like a checkered flag, the logo. I've got the whole set, and this, for some reason, these have really, really stuck with me just as toys that I like. They have a prominent place on one of my shelves in a different room, not the toy room. They're okay. Likenesses to the cartoon are pretty solid, but they're just kind of basic generic figures. But the big thing is that when I was in high school, these came out, and I could not find them anywhere. I'm not even sure how I knew they existed back then. I don't know how I found out. So I had to hunt these down on eBay for a halfway decent price. I've got the Mach 5 and a bunch of other figures, and some of them are still carded. I opened up a lot of them, but I kept a few that I really wanted on card still. And then, like, I remember specifically buying these and having to send money orders to people in the mail. I'm sure if you've been around long enough to do eBay back then, you knew that, you know, you could send a check to somebody and then they'd send you your item, or you could send a money order to someone and then they'd send it to you. Back before PayPal was safe, or people really, really trusted it. People, you know, did actual physical money. That's weird. So yeah, we've got a Speed Racer figure, and it's just something that it's really stuck with me. Like I said, it's not objectively a good figure. It's very, very basic. But yeah, it's something that I just like to keep on my shelf and have a hold of pretty much all the time. Something else I don't really talk about too much on the channel, but something that is definitely a part of me. This particular Gundam is my favorite Gundam figure, not model kit, that I own. This is it's about 8 or 9 inches tall. It's a Tallgeese 3 from Gundam Wing Endless Waltz. And this guy is part of a very, very, very small subline of bigger scale figures that Bandai put out here in the States in like the early 2000s, called the Arch Enemy series. I think there's maybe 3 or 4 total. There's the Tallgeese 3 and then there's the Wing Zero. And I think there are 2 others, but this is the only one I ever got. And it's kind of skyrocketed in value as well. I don't have the box or anything, but I've got him complete and he's in really, really good shape. But back in the late 90s, early mid 2000s, like, anime was my thing, like 100% unequivocally. If you knew me in person, you knew that, like, I was the guy that was way too much into anime. Had a big anime website way back when, and did a bunch of DVD reviews and all kinds of stuff, but that's for a different story. So this thing is just something that I really like. I love Gundam Wing. I know I'm not alone in that. I mean, it's kind of the Gundam series and movie, but this thing is just kind of stuck with me forever. I thought I had lost it for a very long time, and then my brother actually found it, so it has kind of regained a spot on my shelf. It is just an amazing thing. It looks very much like a model kit, like a 1/100th scale model kit, but it's a straight up action figure. It's got the big cannon. He's got a beam saber, but that's put away because I don't have him displayed with it right now. And then he's got this incredibly well articulated whip, which is just the coolest damn thing. So yeah, if you like Gundam stuff, this might be one to check out if you want a bigger scale action figure, but it's not a cheap figure these days, which is still kind of weird to me. Going to something a little different, but very similar to something I've already shown. This is my childhood Tiger Zord. He doesn't work anymore. The electronics in it corroded out a long time ago, and I was never able to get it clean enough to fix it. I mean, it's not like I'm going to go around and make him roar or anything, but that would be cool. I did fix him up with some Japanese-style stickers, though, so I've put repro stickers on him to kind of bring him up to better standards. It cleaned him up when I finally put him back on display. But when I was a kid, I didn't actually have the original Megazord. So this was the first Megazord that I got, or first Zord. I had this and the Thunder Megazord, which is on display as well. But this is the thing, I mean, this is the one for me. This was my favorite. I had the Saba sword and everything, and I was an obnoxious little brat running around with that stupid talking sword. But this is, I mean, it's probably my all-time favorite Zord in general. This one just has a lot of nostalgia for me. I mean, come on, it's the White Tiger Zord. How could you not love this thing? And this is back when Bandai still did, well, Bandai's not going to be doing it anymore. Back when Bandai did Japanese Zords that were just imported into the US toy line. Obviously, this was the first stuff, but, you know, they don't do that anymore. Stickers are coming off. Come on now, we're on camera. And yeah, it's just a cool toy. One that I've always really loved, and I've got it back into as pristine of condition as it possibly can be. I mean, look at that shiny gold there. It's fantastic. And he still transforms. I've got all the little orbs for him and everything, so he's as complete as can be without him having any working electronics. So I guess he's not complete though, is he? And then we got 2 more things. One of them I've shown before in a different video specifically to what these are. But I've got a bunch of stuff like this. And this is my favorite of the bunch just because it signifies something very special. And that's my Power of the Force 2 Princess Leia Organa figure. And of course, this is the one that's signed by Carrie Fisher. I got her to sign this before episode 7 came out. This is where she signed it to, you know, as Mrs. Solo, before we knew really anything about what was going on. So it was really cool to get to meet her. And of course, this means a lot because that opportunity is no longer around. So this has a special spot in my collection for sure. I mean, obviously you can see other stuff back on the shelf back there that I always have on display, but this is the big one. And I've got Mark Hamill's signature as well, and that is unequivocally the big one, but there's a lot more meaning behind this particular figure and signature for me. And then the last thing that I guess, you know, one of my all-time favorite things, and this is objectively, you know, maybe not a great toy. It's certainly seen better days, but this is another thing that I've had since I was a kid, and definitely a little kid. And it's weird because I had this and I had a bunch of figures, but none of them actually went together. And I didn't know that the bigger version existed for a very long time. So that would be my Thundercats miniature figures playset. So this is the Cat's Lair, and you can see it's definitely not screen accurate. And it's just a little thing. It's got, you know, a little deck you can raise up. It's got a jail cell. You can drop figures down in there with a trapdoor. But there was a whole subline of minifigures for Thundercats. I didn't have any of those. I had the actual figures. Well, some of them. I didn't have all of them. So I always used the smaller scale Wile E. Kit and Wile E. Cat because they were the only things that could fit into this. And it wasn't until later that I knew that there was a real Cat's Lair playset that, you know, was humongous. I've got it now, obviously, but I didn't know about it as a kid. You know, Thundercats was still really new when I was just an infant, so I had all this stuff kind of secondhand. But this thing, I've got two of these. One of them is in much worse shape than this, but this is the one that I have had since I was a kid, and it's as cleaned up as it's going to be without me replacing anything. And I've gotten to the point where I just don't want to replace it. This is the way it's been for a long, long time. I don't want it to be any different. It's just got a lot of feelings for me when I look at this thing. Like this is for the longest time like the Thundercats thing that I had. It was the big thing for me, so I'm just always going to keep it this way. So yeah, that's about it. I mean, I'm sure it's not too far off the mark from what you thought I like to have around. Thundercats and Motu and Power Rangers. You know, maybe the Gundam and the Speed Racer thing kind of throws people off, but those just hold some good memories for me, and that's mostly what all of these things are. Most of them aren't worth a damn, really. Some of them are. The Tall Geese is worth a little bit. The Megazord is worth quite a bit, but that thing's really new, and it's just incredibly rare. All of this stuff is just, you know, it's nostalgia for me. It's pure fun when you talk about old toys from when I was a kid. So that's about it. Just wanted to throw some stuff out there just to give you an idea of some of the weirder, maybe less known things that I have on display in my collection. Let me know what you thought of this kind of stuff, or if you'd like to see anything more like this, because I've certainly got other stuff that I could have included. I just didn't want this video to be 30 damn minutes long. And let me know what you guys have on display that wouldn't necessarily be considered rare or valuable, but means a lot to you, because that's the kind of stuff that I really like to talk about. So that's going to do it, guys. I'll catch you later.